A very good evening to all our viewers in Guyana and around the world as we continue our broadcast on Globespan 24x7 to bring you issues in the news and of matters that affect our great country of Guyana. We want to thank Nohar Singh for making this platform available, and of course, Devin Bisu, our technical specialist. To our sponsors, we also want to thank you for continuous sponsorship of our program, and we want to encourage others to please come on board to help us continue this program as we broadcast around the world. This evening, we have no stranger to us. We have with us a gentleman who left a great job here in the United States. He packed his bag, he went back to Guyana, and he's now taking on a great challenge to bringing a company that many persons have condemned to the dustbin. He has done so far. He's been there for almost 2 years. And in all our reports, I think he's doing a great job in bringing that great Guyana company back to life. It is our pleasure this evening to have with us the Chief Executive Officer of Guyana Sugar Corporation, Mr. Sasenarine Singh. Mr. Singh, welcome to the program tonight.
Well, good evening, Charles. Good evening, Dr. Rose. Well, thank you for providing me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts on many things. More importantly, what we're doing in the sugar sector. But more notably, I want to share my thoughts on what a fantastic 2022 budget Guyana was presented with. A budget that is designed to improve the livelihood of the Guyanese people. But I just wanted to correct one thing you said. It feels like I've been here 2 years, but I've just been here 1 year, 3 months. So much has been done. But yes, so I'm grateful for this opportunity. I don't do it often because I prefer spending the time in the fields, looking at things on directly. But I think it was a good idea to sit with you at this moment in time.
Yeah, let me recap. You're 2 years in Guyana, not in Guysuco. But and Dr. Rose, my co-host, welcome again to the program.
Thank you, Charles, and welcome, Says, to this program. And it will be yours to explain to the listeners what the future holds for Guysuco.
And I know before we go on, I know Dr. Rose has been very complimentary to you, Mr. CEO. So I hope you don't have no soft question for you, that we get the hard questions that we deserve answers to the viewing. But before we go into that, we also want to extend to Africans around the world as we celebrate African History Month. Had it not been for Africans, we might still be sitting at the back of the bus here in the United States. They've done a great service to humanity. Some of the greatest inventors, some of the greatest architects, some of the greatest persons that walked the planet were of African descent. So to put aside only 1 month to them is a disservice, but of course, life goes on as usual. So we have a short clip in honor of our great African history, and we'll play that now for our audience before we get into the program.
Black History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by African Americans and a time for recognizing their central role in history. Also known as the African American History Month, the event grew out of the brainchild of noted historian Carter G. Woodson and other prominent African Americans. Edmond Montague, Eddie Grant, born March 5, 1948, is a Guyanese-British musician. He was a founding member of the Equals, one of the United Kingdom's first racially integrated pop groups. He is also known for a successful solo career that includes the platinum single, Electric Avenue. He also pioneered the genre ring bang.
Oh, we're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue, and then we'll take it higher. Oh, we're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue, and then we'll take it higher.
Thank you, and that's our own Eddie Grant, who among many others have done remarkable well around the globe. So thank you, Globespan, for bringing that to us. So, Mr. CEO, what is the state of the Guyana Sugar Corporation as we speak tonight?
Well, before you talk about the state of the Guyana Sugar Corporation, I want to make sure that the Guyanese public understand, because the sugar sector gets an unnecessarily bad rap. Some of it is because of not enough clarity is given on what is happening in sugar. Sugar is a unique science. It is not as basic as any other science. It's a one-year crop, or perennial crop as we call it. But what sugar is deeply knitted into the history of Guyana. You don't get rid of your history just like that. As we all know, sugar is very neatly woven into the fabric of the Guyanese society. And while people are talking about words like, loosely using words like black hole and so forth, they're not telling you the other part of the equation, which is right now sugar is pumping about $10 billion directly into the pockets of some 8,000 families. Now think about that. $10 billion into the pockets of some 8,000 families. Even in a year like 2021, which was an extraordinary year for the sugar sector, where we had the worst flood in 40 years, the worst flood in 40 years. It was so bad that 35% of the standing cane died because they were underwater for more than 65 days. When I did the mathematics with my technical team, we found we were pumping close to 2,000 Olympic-sized swimming pool off the land every single day on the quarantine. 2,000 swimming pool of water off the land into the Atlantic Ocean every single day. 2.4 million tons of water was being removed. So those who know cane will know that it can withstand some level of water, 10 days, 18 days, but 65 days. And that is why 2021 was an extraordinary year. But let's step 1 year before that disastrous year, to the period August 2020, and when I visited Rosal Estate for the first time. It was a difficult visit, because let's start with my first visits to Albion, Blairmont, and Iflat, and then I'll talk about Rosal. It started out with the discovery in late 2020 of an environment, what I would call a boneyard of steel and mud. A boneyard of steel and mud that was waiting to be pushed over, because that is what happened on these grinding estates. In 2019, $76 million alone was invested on these three estates. $76 million alone. In 2021, we invested 37 times more than that. So while we're all talking about black hole, what did we do to invest to ensure that the industry is stronger? We did nothing in 2019, nothing. And when I say we, I'm talking about, we who could have done something. We did nothing. So that is the challenge. So sugar, what happened? Sugar was starved. Now it's getting fed. But for it to get fed and recover, it requires time and effort. And there's three things that is very important. The size of the labor force, is it growing? Is it reducing? How fast are we getting new technology into the estate? And last but not least, the market. You see, this new dispensation is output, the new model that we're driving, and we've built for the record. Guysuco has built a 5-year strategic plan, and I can show you a copy of it. It is here. So when people are talking about strategy and that Guysuco doesn't have a strategy, Guysuco doesn't know what it's doing, they're playing to the gallery. They are just being populist and not dealing with the facts. So I want to deal with facts today. So here we have a considerable challenge in an industry that was starved of capital investment. But with a good strategic plan and the right amount of resources at the right time. And when I'm talking about resources, I'm talking about capital, talent, machinery. This industry is fixable within 4 years. Yes, it is fixable. And that is why I want to put on record, since Dr. Van Ali came to power, he has put his money, the government's money, he has contributed to the talent base, he's contributed to machinery, and we're on our way because we have a plan. And we want to make this extremely clear. Guysuco knows where it's going. Those of us who feel that we don't know where we're going, they need to join with us. Rather than criticize from the sideline, they need to join with us and build this great industry, because 8,000 families are depending on it.
All right.
And but let me just get to Rose Hall. When we turn up at Rose
We're
Hall,
going to discuss, Mr. CEO, we can discuss all the assets as we go on, but I just want to stop you if you don't mind. And you mentioned there is like $40 billion or 30 billion, just the number right, going to the sugar workers every year, all the person within
10 billion.
10 billion. But what you haven't mentioned, all the infrastructure you're talking about, we know that Guysuco was starved of development funds to repairs and maintenance and so on, capital project. But you're getting, well, not you, but Guysuco is getting free money from the government, so you're not paying any interest on that money. Is that so, or is it funds to Guysuco with an interest element?
Well, let me put it this way. There's 8,000 families that are depending on this industry in rural Berbice and rural Demerara. What is needed for Guysuco to re-engineer itself is capital investment. That is where the government is putting its money to make sure that all the tools and parts and field equipment and factory machinery are being re-engineered and replaced. So what is wrong with that? I mean, seriously, what is wrong with that? A government came and says, we want to reopen Rose Hall. We want to reopen these estates in a phased manner, of course, because it's such a huge project. And this is why, what is wrong with the government investing to enhance the socioeconomic energy of rural communities that has limited opportunities? So let me give you an example of what happened at Rose Hall. What we found at Rose Hall was a scrapyard of hopelessness, most of which was rendered beyond repair. So it was destroyed. All the field equipment was left in various stages of rot. Most was rendered beyond repairs. So what is wrong with the government saying we have a depressed community? And the ILO confirmed this. The ILO confirmed this in a study that there is a depressed community at Rose Hall. And I'm just using Rose Hall as one of the examples. What is wrong with the government investing in economically empowering its citizens via a state-owned agency? There's nothing wrong.
No, we are not against, Mr. CEO.
If you think about the Great America, isn't the Farm Bill one of the great contributors to the agriculture sector in that country?
Yeah. No, you got
doling out billions of dollars to American citizens. What is wrong with that?
No, your point is
an economy can only develop on three foundations. It's the housing sector, the agriculture sector, and the manufacturing sector. If we don't get those three sectors right as sustainable contributors to the economic development of the nation, then we will be living by fly by night. We will be running from project to project trying to get money. But if you have a well-functional agriculture sector and a well-functional housing sector and a well-functional manufacturing sector, then you will clearly be moving an economy and the country from one level to the other seismically over time.
And you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct, Mr. CEO. But the point I'm trying to raise is that, and you really hit on most of them, is that government should not be in the business of business, if you would understand what I mean. So what you said there, that yeah, the government do have an obligation to resuscitate the industry because it's owned by the people and government of Guyana. But Guysuco is getting funds from the government with no interest rate attached to it. Now, bearing in mind that the government has other priorities as well. There are some people who said that the government is putting money after bad project. What would you say in that context?
Well, the question I would respond with that question with another question. What is bad about investing in rural Guyana? That's the challenge. What is bad about investing in rural Guyana and re-engineering these communities to become more economically sustainable? The idea is that Guysuco is not going to be a drain on the government forever, and that is why this strategic plan clearly has a roadmap whereby Guysuco will become cash neutral in the near future, and that is what is extremely, extremely important. So the die is cast. Guysuco has no choice but to re-engineer its business, whereby we have to move up the value chain. We have to be able to rationalize our costs. We have to become more efficient. We have to be able to make that model work whereby we're producing sugar to sell to markets where we can make profits. And that is what we're moving towards.
And we want to get into that.
Let me give you an example. When I arrived, 64% of our sugar was being sold on the world market, which is a price between $320 to $380. Today, 64% of that sugar is being sold in the package and bag sugar market at double that value. Double that value. So the question remains is we have to re-engineer the revenue stream. The revenue has to be fixed, and that was fixed last year. We know clearly what we're doing about the revenue. This year, we're spending, and we did investments in capital works yet last year. But this year, we're going to be focusing on ensuring that the cost structures are rationalized. We have to.
Yeah.
So to bring the cost of production down. At the end of the day, this business can work. And we spent a lot of time. We even went after the flood to redo our strategic business plan to make sure that it is sense checked for the impact of that flood. So Guysuco is ahead of the curve on these matters. So the die is cast, as I said, and we are ready to seize the day to move this industry forward. And one of the greatest things that I found at Guysuco was a talent pool that was very good at what they do. They may not have been very connected to the strategic direction of what all were thinking, but now they're connected. They built this. This wasn't built by Sasenarine Singh. This was built by hundreds of people, and the board of directors. We worked together collaboratively to build it, present it to our shareholders. So the truth of the matter is that we're not all about words and words. We're actually putting this into action. And what was critically needed was resources to mechanize the field, because we do have a labor challenge across this whole country. This country is growing at such an astronomical rate. There's going to be so much pull on those, well, it's not 750 workers, but 750,000 workers. It's about 392,000 workers. But there's going to be so much pull on those people that we will struggle to find labor in the future.
Yeah.
So we have to move quickly towards
mechanization. Mr. CEO,
it is very, very important.
Yeah, I think your critics did not give you enough credit that you're there, as you said, only 1 year and a few months. and you've really transformed, or is beginning to be transformed, into a viable entity. Now, this year, you'll get $6 billion from the government. In your strategic plan, is there any future proposal to repay some of those funds that you're getting from the government back into the treasury when Guysuco becomes more profitable in the...
Charles, you know, I want history shape the future. And very few people remember the same sugar industry contributing over $500 billion to the same economic coffers via the sugar levy.
And in today's cost, it could be more than that. In today's cost, it will be more.
So the question is, to be asked that question about payback is kind of like an embarrassment, because this nation in the old days took more than $500 billion from the sugar industry. We invested in all sectors across this country. Even might have spent some of that money building the Linden Highway. The question is, nobody complained then. Guysuco was doing well then. They'd give the money freely, give it to the state. The question is, now that because of the changing conditions in the industry and underinvestment, and I'll tell you a little bit about what happened. Underinvestment, we need to re-engineer this business. But I want to talk to you about, and I want to talk to the public about something specific that I discovered the other day, because when I came to office, the last audited statement that I saw on my desk was 2016. So far, we've done 2017, 2018, 2019. We're closing up 2020 shortly. And by September of this year, we're going to finish 2021. So Guysuco is going to move itself where it's becoming corporate responsible to its shareholders. But while I was going through those documents, I found at the end of 2016, there was $62 billion worth of field and machinery and plant equipment in the factories and the field of Guysuco. By the end of 2019, it was $19 billion. Let me repeat that, $19 billion. You want to talk about economic genocide? It has happened in the sugar industry between 2016 and 2019. I would call it financial murder. That is your black hole. $43 billion in real, tangible assets that you can touch, you can feel, you can see was wrecked and destroyed because of a lack of investment to repair them, to fix them, to rehabilitate them, or replace them.
Yes.
So we got to give credit to this government for taking that measure to make sure that this remaining 19 billion is not destroyed, but is re-engineered. It's going to be fixed, rehabilitated, replaced, and multiply from 19 billion to more than that, so that 8,000 families can have a sustainable future. It is a very, very important point. You see, people were running and says, we're right-sizing the industry. You're right-sizing the industry, but you destroyed lives. You destroyed $43 billion in real assets of the people of Guyana, so that you can have your Lala journey. It is economic genocide that happened in this country. So while many are chattering about a black hole, they must understand when the black hole was opened and who opened it and why it was opened. You know, the Greeks have a saying, ex favilla nos resu genemos. It's from the ashes we rise. So when we walked into Guysuco, we found ashes on all 6 locations, all. But that is why these investments are critical, so that we can build back these asset base. You can't make sugar with damaged factories. You can't make sugar efficiently with broken steel, with broken machinery, with broken chains. Do you know how often the young men and women of Guysuco, and we do have women engineers. The young men and young women of Guysuco have to stop the factory to fix broken chains that has not been replaced for many years. Well, I want to say, I was so proud when this year 3 container loads of brand new chains came for those factories. We can't replace all because we have a budget. We have to work with what we have. But 3 container loads of chains came to this country from the United Kingdom to be put on those factories, because it means that parts of the factory's chain infrastructure that was so feeble that you have to weld it on a weekly basis will now be able to work through the crop. So the post-August 2020 financial philosophy in the Sugar Belt today is fundamentally different from what the philosophy was in 2019. For us to understand what we're doing in sugar, we must be very, very cognizant.
Yeah, and we want to get into that a little later on, but I deliberately did not put that levy that the government collected from Guysuco, because I know, as you said, it was about 50 billion Ghana dollars, and in today's dollar, it will worth much more than that, maybe 100 billion. So yes, the input that government is making to Guysuco is basically paying back some of Guysuco's what they did into the government. But we'll get into that later on, because I know, as you rightly said, the pool of professionals at Guysuco is enormous, and we want to get into that later on. But Dr. Rose, over to you.
Thank you, Charles, and welcome, Mr. Sasenarine, to Globespan 24x7. Now, this is your second appearance here, but let me start off with this question. Given what has been written and said about you, that you do not know anything about the sugar industry in Guyana, that you are a chartered accountant or a CPA, and don't have any experience in managing the sugar industry, I want you to debunk this myth by telling our listeners how many years you have spent studying the sugar industry.
You know, Dr. Rose, I am someone who is humble. I am humbled to be to be where I am. I'm very humbled to be where I am. And I don't think this is about me. I really want to focus on sugar, the process, the plan, the philosophy, the people. And one of the things I really, really want to do, I keep telling my staff, I want them to be empowered. They will tell you that I empower them. Those who are prepared to work will be empowered by me. Those who are prepared to talk will have to know that I will be coming hard on them, because I don't deal with talking. What we're trying to do is fix a generation of destruction in a few short years. It takes a lot. It takes a lot. It will take a lot. But so, Dr. Rose, you're too kind to want to give me a chance to defend myself. But you know what? When they go low, I'm going to go high, as Michelle Obama said. I want to focus on the job at hand. And I'm humbled to be given the chance to be a servant of the Guyanese people. As I was telling Charles earlier, you know, Forbes Burnham had something called the Guyana National Service. This is my Guyana National Service. It is a lot of work. We work 7 days a week. Those who know me, my poor wife, knows that I'm waking up at 4 a.m. every morning. But you know what? It is a pleasure to serve the poorest of the poor. Because when you look at the wages of those in the band 1 and band 2, at the bottom of the salary scale at Guysuco, it is far below what many others, both in the public service and the private sector, are getting. Far below. It's an injustice. It is an injustice. And I don't have a problem saying that on the record. And that is where I get my pleasure. Because I really want to make sure that the economic wealth is expanded fast enough so that more of it can be shared with these people. More of it can be shared with these people.
You have been given the toughest, perhaps the most troubled agency in Guyana to manage. How are you coping? And tell our listeners why you took this job.
First of all, how I'm coping. I could not have coped if I did not have the team that I have around me. My factory operations director, my field operation director, my head of finance, my head of human resources. These people are working equally as hard as me, some of them even harder. So all my estate managers, they are working. So if I didn't have this team, I think I would not have taken this job, because it's a mission almost impossible. But once we had crafted that plan and we started to fix the systems, we start to see light at the end of the tunnel. And you know what? To have survived 2021, the year of the worst flood in 40 years, and still be here as an industry, it tells you the resilience of that team. So I want to give all credit to that team. But let me make this very, very clear. For the record, to all those who want to criticize Guysuco, since Dr. Irfan came to office, Guysuco has never failed to pay its workers every week. Every week, the sun rises, the workers are getting their monies. Guysuco's been paying its bills. Guysuco's been paying off old debts. Guysuco restarted to pay NIS again. Guysuco pays about $100 million to NIS. It is happening month after month after month. These things were not easy, and these things were not being done before. That is why when we came into office, there were so many people there's a joke in Guysuco. Everybody who wake up in the morning, Guysuco owe them. But we started to pay off a lot of these debts, and the business community is feeling the impact of it. People who have sold to Guysuco are feeling the impact. The small business people are already they've already been paid off. We're now moving to the second tier, and we're working through it. For us to understand the sugar industry, why I took this job. I want to tell you why. When I listened to that speech from His Excellency, the President, Dr. Irfan, that was made on Saturday, August the 8th, 2020 at the National Culture Center. He said something, and I want to quote what he said. He said, "We intend to raise up the sugar industry and to help it, and to help its workers resume the once proud place in our economy." Now, then His Excellency went a little bit further when he declared open parliament a few months after. And I quote him again. He said, "Sugar is more important to us as a people than a mere agriculture crop." And this is the essence of where we're going. So in a real sense, he said, I'm quoting again, it represents our beginning as a Guyanese nation. Quoting His Excellency again, he said, "Our ancestors were brought from different lands, but sugar was the start of the fashioning of our identity as a people. Our struggle as one people to end colonialism and exploitation and take control of our destiny, all of that happened. It was born in the sugar industry." The president went on further to say, Dr. Chetty Jagan once observed that both Afro-Guyanese and Indo-Guyanese watered the sugarcane fields with their blood. And he asked us to ponder on those thoughts. So I want to tell you that this is why I took this job. It is a very important duty to one's nation. You can't call yourself a Guyanese and given an opportunity to serve your country and refuse it. You do it. Called upon to service, you do it. So the president at that time, when he was talking to Parliament, said all of this is why we as a Guyanese must resolve to nurture and care the sugar industry, because it represents our oneness, And that is where I see with my eyes day and night while some people are trying to split this country, sugar symbolizes that oneness of a people. I go on Albion Field and I see the gang from Manchester and Alness and Lancaster cutting cane side by side from the people from Tain and Albion and you know, it happens and they live together. Sugar represents that oneness. And I believe it's a sacred duty to be given that chance to nurture and rebuild such an industry. So for me, sugar is a couple of things. It's an opportunity not to drain the nation, but this is my chance to give them a chance to stem the call on the treasury, and that's important. Stem the call on the industry, but sugar is one of the biggest generator of our skill sets. What are we going to do with all the skill sets? Just throw them away? We have to utilize them. We have to utilize them productively. But what sugar does for rural Demerara and rural Berbice, it provides dignity to those 8,000 families. In resuscitating this industry, it is extremely important that we have this plan so we know where we're going, but then after that, implement the plan. And that's what we're doing. But it requires a little bit of time. It requires a little bit of patience. It requires less ignorance of the negaholics who just want instant, open sesame. They want instant solution. When they know these things are not easily done. But Dr. Rose, I'm telling you, and I'm soon to tell, I'm told soon, Dr. Sugrim, the die has been cast. The die has been cast. And they can complain about black hole from today, tomorrow, next year. It will not change the reality. Sugar is coming back. Sugar has to come back in different shapes and forms, but it will come back. It will come back at a value-added level. It will come back targeted markets at a higher value. It will come back with better equipment. It will come back with a more talented workforce. It will come back with mechanization. It will come back, as Dr. Singh said in his speech, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Senior Minister of Finance, Dr. Ashley Singh said, it will come back with packaging plants. It will come back with consolidation. It will come back with revitalization. And at the end of the day, it will become resilient. So my idea is we need to give sugar some time. We need to encourage these 8,000 talent pool that have given their life to sugar a chance to show what they can do for Guyana.
Again, explain to our listeners some of the changes you have made to improve the lives of the sugar workers.
Well, the first thing I did when I came in is I looked at 10 years cash flows. For me, I wanted to see where the money was coming from and where it was going. Clearly enough money wasn't coming through the front door because we were selling in the world market, 64% of our sales. We basically were dumping sugar and then going to the government and says, hey, give us more money, give us more money. That is not a model. The model has to be output working towards an input, meaning you design your output. What do I want to sell and in which market I want to sell it? So we have that locked now. We know for sure our vision is package and bag sugar market, where we're aiming for a price of above $7. That is the game plan. So we know what is our output. Now we need to know how much we can sell in Guyana. Guyana is about 25,000 metric tons. How much we can sell in the Caribbean, how much we can sell in North America, and the rest of the world at package and bags. Not bulk. We have to minimize bulk. And so once we've established that, and we have established that, we know every year what we are going to be doing for the next 5 years. So this year it's 64,888 metric tons. And the reason for that number is very simple. When the flood happened last year, the crop that is going to be harvesting today at Albion, this crop, 81% of it died. Do you understand what I'm saying? Albion, the largest sugar estate, which produces 50% of the industry's production, for the first crop of 2022, 81% of the cane, the standing cane, died. Some 3,000 hectares of cane died. So the challenge is, and you know, those of us who know sugar, the acreage is divided into half part of 45% in the first crop, 55% in the second crop. So the first crop is the smaller crop, the second crop is the bigger crop. So this smaller crop, 85% or 81% of the cane died. So we have to now make a crop out of what is remaining. And that's what we're doing. And we're still working towards making that 64,888 metric tons because the other two estates weren't so badly affected as Albion. But Albion was brutally affected, So that's the first thing we are doing. We're making sure that we understand the market enough to be able to produce for that market. So we're not producing anymore. We're not just going to produce blindly and says, well, if we can't sell it in the world market. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. What we're doing is design a market and then produce for that market at that price. We decide the price level, we decide the quantum, and we produce to meet that market model. The second thing we've done is we have outsourced 85% of our procurement. Give procurement to the professionals. Guysuco is not a procuring agency. We allow the central procuring agency, and that's the law. The law says every procurement using government fund over $12 million must be done by the National Tender Board. Why is Guysuco in that? I don't know. So we moved 85% of our procurement out of Guysuco into the central system. It was the best decision we made. You know why? Then it means that the Guysuco people can concentrate on what you call the core procurement that is required. Let NPTAB buy all the Highmark and excavator and all the equipment. Let them do that. They're experts at that. Let them do it. We want to focus on our business. So that is what we got more of our people to focus on, the business. The other thing we are doing is that we are using and compliments of the government of Guyana. We've just gotten the steel to fabricate 250 punts. The first time this has happened in 4 years. So the last time I think they did about 50 punts 4 years ago. And punts is the little boat that the cane goes in that moves it from the field to the factory. So we're going to be fabricating 250 punts. Now that is, how better can you get at made in Guyana, by Guyanese, for Guyanese? All of it will be made at Albion at the central workshop. You know how many jobs that's going to create? You know how many Barbicians or Guyanese will be able to get a job learning to weld, learning to roll steel, learning to bend steel, learning to fabricate things? You see, and this is what they're missing. The negaholics are missing. Guysuco, at every corner of its life, is creating opportunities for Guyanese people. Now, what else we're doing? We're basically changing out. We're refurbishing all the electrical generators across the industry. We are definitely in the market, hustling to get some mechanization equipment into Albion. We are building a new packaging plant starting this year at Albion. We are expanding the packaging plant at Blairmont. And this is all part of a design to be able to sell at the higher value so that we have enough capacity to produce package and bag sugar for the market as it opens up. And we are opening markets. We've just opened the Jamaican market to us. Last year we opened markets in Antigua, Grenada. We had sugar sales for the first time last year to Germany. A container went to Germany, Holland. So we're opening markets and people love the Guyana sugar. You know why? It is the closest to authentic sugar that you can get. And it is the only authentic Demerara sugar in the world, made from the soils of Guyana and Demerara. So it is important that we continue this program of making sure we're getting the revenue, but at the same time, revising all our cost plan. For example, last year we got $175 million out of our headquarters budget. $175 million. I mean, that took a lot of effort, a lot of resistance was cast on the leadership when we started to make these things. But people are starting to see and buy into the idea that it makes sense because the long-term sustainability of the industry is dependent on everybody giving a little.
I have a short question for you before you go to break.
Before you go to break, let's go to break, and when we come back, we'll continue to see you. I think he's doing a great job in his presentation. We'll take a short break and we come back.
Get your meals delivered directly to your home. Order your curry, duck curry, goat, or chicken, plus your dalpuri roti and bus-up-shut from allfromonesupplier.com. We ship your meals directly to your home, so you can enjoy it upon arrival or refrigerate it and take it out when you're ready to eat. No more waiting in lines and no more losing time. Now you can treat yourself with a tasty curry and roti. You can also order solos, ices, pear jacks, coconut water, and much more from allfromonesupplier.com. It is free shipping to all U.S. states on all your curry, duck curry, goat, and chicken, plus sodas and all West Indian items. So treat yourself or send a gift box of your favorite food, tasty pastries, sweets, and coconut water, or any West Indian item, products such as fish, meat, curry powders, pepper sauces, and much more from allfromonesupplier.com. Call today at 718-551-3292 or visit allfromonesupplier.com. Remember, it's free shipping throughout the U.S. Make your vacation a memorable one. Enjoy your trip just as if you are at home. Your music, your culture, and your way to have fun, with all you can eat and drink at an all-inclusive vacation. You choose the all-inclusive vacation that suits you. July 14th to July 18th is Bollywood on the Beach, plus Indo-Cultural in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. July 21st to July 25th, Christian Community Week in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. July 28th to August 1st, Curry Duck Curry Competition in Cancun, Mexico. August 4th to August 8th, Caribbean Throwback Week, Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. And August 11th to August 15th, Soca vs. Indian, Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Seats are available from New York, Miami, Orlando, Atlanta, Newark, Canada, Trinidad, and Guyana. Meet up with family and friends, and plus make new friends at all these inclusive vacations. TravelSpan has your vacations, plus cheap seats to Guyana and Trinidad. Call TravelSpan today at 718-845-0437. That's 718-845-0437. In Canada, call 647-557-6200. In Guyana, call 227-1701. And in Trinidad, call 645-1604. Folks, the Nest Restaurant is the place to dine for Guyanese and Caribbean dishes. It is the best restaurant in Queens. The staff is courteous, and Dave, the owner, is always there to welcome you. So for a memorable dining experience, visit the Nest Restaurant located at 12717 101 Avenue, South Richmond Hill. Go and make a reservation today or takeout. Call 718-847-4035.
Thanks again to our listeners, and thanks for having you here, Mr. Sasenarine Singh, the CEO for Guysuco. Now, I have a question for you. You said Guysuco will be turning around in 4 years' time. I, like many of our listeners, are impatient. Why not 2 years?
Clearly, the point is the damage that was done. As I just give you the example, Guysuco lost $43 billion in property, plant, and equipment between 2016 and 2019. And this is the facts. As I said, it's there in the audited statements. So it's not that this is not an invention of my mind. And we have to re-engineer and regenerate that. It takes time. The other thing that is really a niggler to Guysuco is the supply chain. Most of our factory equipment comes from abroad.
By the way, how it lost 43 billion? Why? How come it lost 43 billion?
Well, when they closed those estates, most of those plants and field equipment got destroyed. Parts were stolen. Some of them were rendered unserviceable permanently. Many parts in the factory got permanently damaged that we have to replace. You know, we had to bring 3 container loads of process pumps for each parts of the factories at Rosal so far, because people either they got stolen out, they got rotted, and they were, you know, one of the biggest crime that was done. When you close a factory, you do something called decommissioning. None of these factories were decommissioned. You know, it's just people wake up one day, next day they just close the door with a padlock and that's it. No decommissioning was done. So that is the kind of recklessness that happened when those factories were closed. But, you know, I don't really want to dwell on the past, because if you dwell on the past, you'll never be able to create the future. I want to stay with the future all the time. And I want to tell you, I want to give a commitment to the workers. And they've seen it last year. We are committed, and we started to buy their, you know, sugar workers, they do a tough job, but they need certain critical tools like their boots and their personal protective gears and so forth. Guysuco started to provide them with these on a more timely basis. So much so that one union leader at Albion told me when he saw me, he said, "Chief, this is the first time I didn't have to ask for my gears. We got it before we had to ask." And this is important, because as I said to you before, there's this myth that sugar workers are working for tons and tons of money. It is a myth. They work for less money than even public servants. But the question is, they work very, very hard. And hence, while we don't have the cash to give them so much more, we can give them in non-monetary benefits. And that is what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is make sure we re-engineer the medical facilities that we have, so that workers can get more support from us in those areas. But lastly, but not least, compliments of the government of Guyana, the workers got 7% increase for the first time in 7 years for some of them. For the first time in 7 years for some workers, they got an increase. While people were getting, you know, a little bit here and there, workers for the first time got an increase in 7% this year. So the question remains, things are happening, and Guysuco now have to absorb that increase, and we are going to press on with it. Our commitment is to make sure that we re-engineer this industry to keep these jobs alive. And I want to give you that forward outlook of where this business is going. You know, and that's why I'm tying it all the time to the 2022 budget, because the 2022 budget was extremely instructive in where Guysuco is going. And the Honorable Senior Minister of Finance, Dr. Singh, with his God bless oratory gift and his clear communicative style, outlined in detail the strategic impetus of the government with respect to the sugar industry in his budget 2022 speech or statement. And I quote what he said. He said, looking at 2022, the strategic investment will be made at Albion, Claremont, and Iflot to upgrade and mechanize where appropriate the field operations and expand the packaging capability to produce more value-added products for our domestic and international market. These investments will be undertaken with the ultimate goal of ensuring that each estate is able to break even. So when you ask what we're doing, I've made each one of my 3 grinding estate managers into business leaders. They have now become business leaders for the first time in the history of the corporation, where they're thinking about their estate as a business. They all have their own revenue and profit and cost targets, and how much losses they're making this year, and what are their plans to cut those losses. All 3 of them have been given the mandate to think like that. Guysuco is not only thinking as one unit, but it's thinking about these 3 estates to become revenue generators. And they all have a plan, a developmental plan to become profitable. Let's pick sense from nonsense. It's clear as day. What the minister is saying, upgrade the mechanization of the field operation. You know, every time a dollar is given to Guysuco, it's a big, you know, him and her. I him and her. But those people, they weren't him and hawing when the sugar levy was being pulled out of the industry. But we accept the fact that we're grateful for the $6 billion that was given to us this year. What are we going to do with it? We're going to use those limited resources to advance in a phased manner this mechanization program. So we're putting more energy into Albion Estate. We're putting more energy into Albion Estate with regards to the mechanization. Because while the flood was extremely destructive, and as I told you before, it destroyed some 3,000 hectares of cane field. That's about 35% of the land at Albion. It provided an opportunity to seize the day. Those canes are dead on those 3,000 hectares of land. So why not convert them to be harvested by machines? And one assurance I want to give to all the workers of Guysuco: no worker will be displaced at Guysuco. None of them. Workers and machines will be working side by side, bringing in that cane to the factory. Nobody's going to lose their job on the field of Guysuco. So in the 2022 budget, for example, some $675 million of those monies will be spent on putting mechanization into Albion. It means new land conversion machine, new land level machine, new plows, strengthening the bridges to cater for this new kind of operation, stronger bridges. It means fixing about 4 miles of critical access dams so that machines can get to the field more easily. It means mechanical planters being bought. It means more harrows being bought for the field. It means more mechanical fertilizer applicators. You know how many applicators are on the field of Albion? Less than 30. And in the old days, you had about 60 to 70 of those people. We have to mechanize some of it. We never displace the human being. Mechanical boom sprayer. All these things are going on. So these operations will be replicated at Blairmont on a smaller scale with machines that are 15 years old.
Let me ask you this quick question. How many new employees you've employed since taking over? And how many you plan to employ in the future? And when will Rosal Estate be opened?
Firstly, 1,387 employees were recruited since October 2020 to now. With regards to the plan for recruitment, as I said, this developmental plan has some limitations right now. One, the COVID-19 pandemic is causing things that we could have sourced in 6 months. It's taking 12 months to get it. It's taking 12 months to get it. So that has impacted on the implementation plan in a significant way, but we're still getting stuff. As I said, just gotten 3 containers of pumps for the Rosal factory, 3 containers of chains for the Albion and Blairmont factory. When the projected plan is the second crop of next year for Rosal. That is what we plan to do.
All right, Mr. CEO, let's talk about some other things now. I know you And I really like that strategy where I would put it a little differently. I would want to make the estate a profit center, but you make them business managers, but I guess it's the same thing, just semantics. What
Profit
about
centers,
your
yeah.
support staff? Because I know your ICD, you have some of the best computer personnel in Guyana. As a matter of fact, I think you have the most qualified of them there. They can also be a profit center on itself. The engineering department, you have some great engineers there, both civil engineer and different kinds of engineer. They can also be a source of a profit center for Guysuco. So if every aspect within Guysuco becomes a profit center, the burden is now shared, almost equally across the board, and your revenue base increase, your cost is reduced, and Guysuco will be winning at the end. What is your plan in your strategic plan for the next 4 years? Is that taken into consideration? Are those things taken into consideration?
Charles, is a very, very important question, and it is taken into consideration, but we have to prioritize. Guyana has a limited talent pool, and so also with Guysuco. While we have, I believe, the best pool of engineers in this country, the best, as you already recognize, pool of IT technicians and professionals in this country, the best pool of agriculturists in this country, and I would say some very, very skilled business leaders who just were waiting for the opportunity to unleash their potential. So I see myself as that catalyst to give them that chance to grow. The people who are willing to grow, the field is here. They have the chance to grow. So I agree with you, but we have to focus on ensuring on one primary facet of this business. We have to focus on getting the cane from the field to the factory on time in the right amount to be able to grind at the right pace, the throughput as we call it, so that we can become more efficient. So if we dilute ourselves into too many pots, because there's another plan. We have a great lab. We're planning to invest in that to make it into not just a lab for sugar, but a lab for the construction sector. There's so much construction going on in this country that we will have multiple needs for testing of the cement textures and so forth, the road building, quality test and so forth. So there is loads of opportunity for additional revenue streams. As I don't know if you know, but the government has commissioned the Port Moran Training School into the National Oil and Gas Training Center of Guyana, which will generate welders and so forth. And Guysuco is hoping to feed off of that talent that is going to be coming out of that to supplement our input, at the entry level in the factories and fields. So we have to be very careful that we don't dilute ourselves too much, because the mandate is very clear in this budget. Get your field operation fixed, get your packaging plant expanded and rebuilt. So and that is what we're trying to focus the money. The limited money that we have, we want to focus on. One, we're going to be building a new packaging plant at Albion. We're going to be expanding the Blairmont packaging plant to make those two estates more closer to the profit center, make them more profitable. They're loss makers now. We're not going to deny that, but we want to move them closer to becoming profitable by doing these revenue enhancing projects at these two estates. In the case of across the industry, we're rehabilitating all the factories to bring great efficiencies to them. And at IFLUT, there's something that a lot of people are not aware of. IFLUT is the greatest experiment at public-private partnership. More than half the field is controlled by the private sector. And we work in partnership using the National Cane Farmers Act to be able to provide income for the private sector on the field using the factories of iFlood. It's an amazing project that
Excellent.
needs to be expanded upon. And it is part of our objective to expand upon it, to bring greater private sector input into the operation.
I know I
It's
have two
important.
different questions to you, but I don't want to forget the TCTS because that is pivotal to sugar, your cost. The higher TCTS, I guess, you'll explain to our audience what TCTS you have now and what you're looking for in your strategic plan. But I also want to ask you, with the local content bill that just passed in Parliament and with the amount of business that the oil and gas sector will generate within Guyana, is Guysuco also looking to leapfrog into getting some of that business in addition to production of sugar, or you're not?
Well, we're a state-owned business, and we have to keep our ears close to the ground to really understand what is going on, what the policymakers are doing, so that we can make sure that we fulfill the mandate of the shareholders. So we are not a.
CEO, before you go on, like you mentioned the lab. The lab can be expanded to test for oil and gas, whatever they might need to, whatever testing to be done, your lab can do it there at your head office. Is that something that you're looking forward to do? Or?
Well, definitely. We have a small amount of money this year to buy some new equipment for the lab to make it, as I said, more friendly towards testing in the construction sector. That is extremely important. So you got to do everything.
Yeah, it takes time as well.
Way. There's only a limited pot of cash, and you got to make sure you don't do like what was happened in the past, where Guysuco had a diversification project and went into cheese manufacturing, goats, sheep, all kinds of stuff. And by the time they caught themselves, they didn't even know what they were doing.
That's correct.
They didn't even know what they were doing. You got to make sure you understand your foundation before you can diversify all over the place. But you're right. We believe our central lab can become a revenue generator in the construction sector. Very important, very important. Our ICT team can become an exporter of talent to the state sector for a fee. Why not?
I was thinking like ICD being a consultant to the government sector, starting with Majari Culture, for instance, and that generates a lot of revenue into your entity. But what about TCTS? Where are we with that, and what is Guysuco's looking forward to achieve in the near future?
Well, our TCTS, let's be honest, because of the floods, there was huge deterioration in the TCTS. At Albion, it's going to be about 17 in this crop, but Albion was hard hit by that flood last year. And as I said, sugar is a perennial crop. Once that damage was done last May, it wouldn't repair itself until this May. So what we're having now is residual cane from that flood period, still flowing through, because it takes 1 year to be able to flow through the system until you can generate new canes in the ground. Now, so Albion is hard hit. The TCTS at Albion will be about 17. And across the other two estates, which was not so hard hit, we expect better TCTS from them. What we've done, though, you see, it's all about planning ahead for 12 months. What we've done in the last crop, we've aggressively done our tillage program, and we're on stream to conduct our tillage program again for this crop. Actually, the team has already started the tillage program since January. So they've already jumped ahead and started to do their work so that by the time the rains come in May, we would have completed our tillage program. So once that tillage program happens, it means that you're able to plant more cane, fresh cane, which will have a much better TCTS than the flood out cane that occurred from last year. So we see great things happening from the second crop going forward. What we're trying to do is work through this year to make sure that all of this flood-prone cane gets grounded and moved off the land. And
now you mentioned the building of dams and bridges and so on to get the cane faster into the estate, and that shorter time will give you a better TCTS. Well, that's responsible. But Guyana, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, might be the only country in the world that burns its cane before harvesting. Are we looking to move away from burning the cane before it's harvested?
Well, it was never discussed with me, so I presume we are not. It's something that Guysuco has done historically, and there must be very good reasons why they've done it this way. It definitely reduces the waste from the cane. It allows quicker access to the cane. And hence, it's a tried and tested practice across the sugar industry that I have not discussed with anyone. So I don't have an opinion on whether we'll do away with it or not do away with it, because it is working right now. I mean, if we did not have this flood last year, I suspected we would have been in a much better place than we are right now. But we're plowing ahead. You know, one of the greatest things we've done is that we're getting more value for money out of our procurement, for example. We're being able to stretch that dollar a little bit more.
Yeah, I understand that, Mr. CEO, and that's true. So, what I'm trying to say, like, I don't know if you ever went to Barbados and see the cane cutting. They don't burn the cane before they cut it. Jamaica don't burn the cane before they cut it. We do, and that's, as you said, it's traditional. And of course, to take away vines, maybe into whatever is in the fields, so the cane cutters can work easy. But having said that, once the cane is burned, the time counts for the sugar content to be reduced dramatically. And that is what I'm trying to say. Maybe in your discussion with your managers and whoever your technical people are, they can maybe start an exploratory fields and see how well, of course, with your union as well, because the union will have to come in that context to ensure that, if you can cut the cane without burning it, you have a longer span to get it to the factory without deteriorating the sugar content.
Well, let me give you an example. I mean, it's called a BGI, the burn to grind interval. That's the period between the burning to the grinding. It usually should be 48 hours. We should do it below 48 hours. But the question is, when we were there in 2021 and 2020, late 2020, there weren't enough tractors to pull those ponds out of the estates. So those are the things also that are affecting it. But guess what? The government has gifted Guysuco 16 new tractors late last year. And those tractors, they call them cane transport tractors. Those tractors have been put into use, will be put into use in this crop. So we were expecting better delivery of the cane to the factory. Further, we have started to fabricate the new punts. And those punts, as we said, the little boats that the cane goes in, those punts will add to the fleet, which means that there will be more available punts to move those canes to the factory when they're cut. So those are two fundamental developments that have happened that will assist in reducing the BGI. But of course, again, it's very, very important that we run this thing like a project. We have to be able, as soon as the cane is burnt, the clocks start ticking and every man jack start to do their task
you got
on time so that we can move it to the factory. So I will be personally looking at that BGI indicator this year across those three factories, because those three estates, Albion, Blairmont, and Iflot, because I believe that's the secret of success. The secret of making sugar is to make sure that you get that cane to the factory quickly, as fast as possible. And we have to do it. We've also built a cane tug to add to the fleet at Albion, and we're building one now to add to the fleet at Blairmont, so that in the rainy season when the dams are bad and the tractor can't use it without damaging it, the tugs will just go along in the canals, bringing the cane to the factory so that we keep grinding. But it has to be monitored. You see, one of the secrets of sugar administration is making sure that the senior executive spends time on the field and in the factory. You cannot do it by a cell phone.
Right.
I, as CEO, find my time and go on those factories, go into those factories and on those fields. And I'm expecting all my executives will spend more time when the production starts on Valentine's Day, between that 2 months, in the fields and in the factory, just monitoring. You see, when people see the leadership cares and is monitoring, efficiency immediately improves. Conscientiousness in the task goes up.
Yeah, without doubt. They look at the leadership on the top. Before Dr. Rose come on, before you went to the Guysuco, Mr. CEO, the executives had membership to a lot of organizations around the world, different top organizations, and Guysuco was paying those membership fees. What is it like now in Guysuco?
Well, I've started to cancel a lot of these things because it's all fluff and puff. Fluff and puff. I mean, I've just canceled one out of the UK that was costing us almost £10,000 before, US dollars before. When I tried to figure out what are we paying this money for, it was all fluff and puff. I don't have time to waste, you know. People who know me, I don't have time to waste. We got a task at hand and we'll get on with the program. We will do the business of sugar and we got to focus on what we have to do. That is what is important. And that's why there's a cultural conflict sometimes, because you know some of the negaholics are part of that fluff and puff crew, the fluff and puff crew. And they see me dismantling this fluff and puff, and it affects them mentally, I think, sometimes. But that's not my concern. My concern is the 8,000 sugar workers who are toiling day and night to make this thing work. That is my concern. I'm not worried about the class conscious people who deal with the fluff and puff. I want to focus, and the strategy is very clear. The project has to be implemented. If we don't do this now, the destruction will happen. The destruction that was started will continue. We have to see this destruction.
Yeah, do you have any knowledge? Sorry, Doc. Do you have any knowledge how much Guysuco was paying?
CEO,
how much Guysuco was paying for
ask you some pointed questions now.
Okay, go on, Doc.
Yes.
What are Guysuco total expenditures on a yearly basis?
Guysuco total expenditure on average, I'll tell you, it was about $13 billion. 13.9 going, let's say $14 billion.
And how much money it made in that year?
About 10.1 billion.
So it's only lagging by $3 billion. Okay.
3.5 billion.
Why isn't Guysuco producing other projects apart from sugar?
Well, you got to fix your mothership first. The Guyana Sugar Corporation's mother product is sugar. We got to fix that first. I am not saying that Guysuco should not be involved in other projects, but if you can't get your core business sorted, where are you going to get the money to invest in other kinds of businesses? You got to fix the core. And that is what we're trying to do. And we're trying to do it in a hurry because we know that in this country, in 5 years, land is going to become gold. Land is going to become gold. And there's going to be products that are needed by the ships out there, products that will be needed in the Caribbean market, products that are going to be needed even here in Guyana that are not being produced enough. So a lot of plantation. I remember Dr. Jagdio many years ago had this idea of plantation agriculture. Let's do plantation size broccoli and plantation size, cauliflower and plantation size of everything. That is the way to go. So we have to make sure that we consolidate on sugar, and all unused land and available land can be utilized for other kinds of activities. But we have to understand that we can't do everything at this point in time. We have to make sure our core is fixed first. And that's all we're trying to do, because what I met was a damaged and broken industry, extremely damaged. I mean, if you see some of these equipment, you would wonder how these people produced sugar with those equipment. People were welding chains to keep them together. Can you imagine that? People are welding. I understand guys were even welding parts of bearings together and pushing it back in the factory. You know, the Guysuco engineers are magicians. I tell you, they're magicians. They're always ready to try to fix things whenever the occasion arises. And so I'm saying that we have to get back to the basics. And that is why we are spending things like monies on replacing the cane knives, which has not been replaced in many, many years. We're replacing the steel rollers. We're replacing some of the generators. We're refurbishing the others. Some of these things have been around for 30 years without getting adequate spares. Men are fabricating spares just trying to keep these generators going. It is a colossal problem. It is a colossal problem. But these things are being changed out. Compliments of the gifts. I want to make this clear, you know. The capital budget is funded by the people of Guyana. The mill rollers that we're getting for all the plants is being bought with the capital contribution from the government of Guyana. We can't do this thing again and again. This is a one-time opportunity we're getting to be able to re-engineer this business. And why not? I mean, it's a really sad story what I saw at Rose Hall, for example. I mean, who would want to destroy Gangaram, Adelphi, Reliance, Canefield, you know, Kanji Front, Cumberland, Gun, Badanaland, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Sisters? People live in these villages. Why would you take away their jobs? And that's what was done at Rose Hall. And my task is very simple: to protect the jobs, to make sure that I remove the loss-making position from the industry, to be able to bring this industry to a point where it is more resilient, it can survive on its own, and it's as simple as that. Fix the revenue, fix the expense side, eliminate the losses. And that's what we're doing. From ashes, we are trying to rise up. That's all we're trying to do. And the unfortunate thing is there is a critical set of people in Guyana who really do not want that to happen because they couldn't do it. Because they couldn't do it. It's like a professional jealousy, if you don't mind. And not me personally. It's a professional jealousy. A government came with a manifesto, says they want to do so. Give them the 5 years. Let them do what they have to do. And if they fail, well, then you mark them in 5 years' time. But being this negative all the time, what manner of human being does this kind of stuff? It is anti-Guyanese trying to destroy an industry that is the heart and soul of rural Demerara and rural Berbice. It is anti-national. It's anti-patriotic also. So I'm appealing to my brothers and sisters across this country. Let us put our hands together. Let us cooperate. Let us try together to rebuild this made in Guyana industry for the Guyanese people.
Guysuco was considered a very corrupt organization. Have you reduced the corruption, or it still exists?
I have not been part of anything of that sort, but what I have started to do is tighten the internal control system. There's only one way I know to do this. Tighten the internal control system, bring greater transparency to the system. What I've also done, I've lifted 85% of my procurement and transferred it to the National Tender Board called NPTAB. So all of that is now being taken out of Guysuco. So we are focused on, as I said, our core job, which is the production of sugar. I don't want people to be spending too much time on procurement. Let the professionals at NPTAB do that. We want to focus on the production of sugar. So I don't know. I don't want to add any value to that statement because my game plan is not that pathway. My game plan is to deliver on the mandate of the government to make Guysuco more resilient and, as directed by my shareholders, to reduce the loss, make them more reliable and resilient as profit centers for this country. So how do you do that? You cut costs. How do you do that? You increase revenue. How you do that? You tighten the internal controls to remove what you call non-value-added activities. So corruption is a non-value-added activity. So that is what we're trying to do, remove all of these things and let the professionals concentrate on production of sugar and selling it at the highest possible value. That is what.
Are you and the union in unison to make Guysuco profitable?
I have discussions with the union, and I can tell you we're working together. We're working together. We're working together all the time. I have a very good relationship with the union.
Quickly, when you took over Guysuco, some of the old heads were complaining because change is something people don't like or want to make. Now, are those people still complaining, or you have changed their mental framework?
I can control what I can control, which is what we're doing. That is what I'm focused on. As I said, Guysuco has a strategic plan. All the workers and all the stakeholders are signed on to this. And this is what we're doing. I don't know anyone who's not signed on to this. So I can just encourage, empower, motivate, and guide people to continue to implement this strategic business plan. That's what I want to say about it.
Okay, I think, thank you so much, Mr. CEO. And as like you know, in any organization, the tone or the set at the top permeates the industry. So, and I think tonight you have laid out a great plan for Guysuco. I think some of your strategies, in my view, and I'm sure in the view of many of the listeners, is very sound. And I can only wish you all the best. And you have a great team there at Guysuco, I can tell you that. I've met most of them. And I think together, Guysuco can come out, even though the naysayers are saying that sugar is dead and there is no more market for sugar. And I think you have identified that you don't need market for sugar. You have niche markets, which most likely will be there for hundreds of years to come. And Guysuco, if you can satisfy those niche markets with value-added product and reduce your cost, Guysuco will be on its way to be independent of government help. Mr. CEO, in closing, do you want to say anything to our viewers?
Yes, I want to share a story that I heard 2 weeks ago. And this is a story where a worker said to me, "Boss, please thank Dr. Irfan and Dr. Jagdio for that 7%. He said, "I used the money to repair my roof for my leaking children's bedroom." So he said when it rained, they used to use buckets to catch water. But today, over the outer crop period, between December to now, he was able to change all the zinc sheets over his children's bedroom. So when the rain falls in May, he said he's hoping that you don't need buckets anymore. So you see, these are the kind of human stories that I get every day. This is what makes my life happy. And In closing, I want to take this opportunity to ask all of Guyana to come on board and help Guysuco rebuild. Help us to do this objective of within 4 years to make this business cash neutral. But most importantly, contribute ideas. We welcome constructive criticism. Anything you want to contribute, please tell us, because if it makes sense, we will discuss it internally and we will implement it. I want to thank all the stakeholders, the board of directors, the shareholders, the workers, the union, everyone who's contributed to this national development plan that we are developing this sugar industry. It is making a difference. The positive work is making a difference. And on that note, I want to thank you for inviting me. You know, I'm a reluctant guest these days because I prefer spending time with my executive doing work. And I'm a reluctant guest, but you know, Dr. Rose is a convincing man. He will, you know, he could convince anyone to do anything, I think. So he was able to convince me that I need to be here tonight.
And also clear the air, because there was so much negative connotation sometime in the press, and I'm glad you came out and you have brought to light exactly what Guysuco is doing, and you being the CEO. I do think you have a clear plan, and I'm sure you also have a plan in case there's another flood again, another heavy rainfall. Your strategy will have to change accordingly, because nothing is written on stone. As we know, the weather pattern changes, and if we get another rainfall that we had last year, you will have to readjust your plan again to make achieve your target. So
what did they say? Nothing in life is certain but uncertainty, or something of that nature.
But do you have a plan B?
We always have a plan B. We always have a plan B. But I mean, take for instance, I mean, with the amount of flooding that happened in 2021, Guysuco was prescribed that it was going to go under. It didn't. It paid wages every single week to the workers. And it was able to, with the support, as I said, and I want to go on record, when we were in the worst of the flood, our minister, the Honorable Zulfikar Mustafa, was there behind us. He helped us with all those excavators to drain the land, all those pumps. We were able to get things from him that we didn't think was conceivable. He was there with us. And we want to acknowledge these contributions, because we could not have done it without this support. NDIA, the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, they are friends of Guysuco. As I said, the Honorable Minister always willing to help this organization, always. Every time we go to him for support, he's there with an idea, with a new idea, with the energy to move us forward. So we're grateful. This is the greatest thing about Guysuco. It teaches you a sense of being humble and being grateful, because the weather can change your life in 5 seconds. In 5 seconds. And disaster can come anytime.
Yeah, and that is an excellent point, Mr. CEO, because now that maybe a disaster can also be a positive thing. So reconfiguring your fields for planting, you'll have to bear in mind that a future rainfall, your field must be able to drain the water off, so your cane will not be...
the engineers are on top of it. The engineers are on.
I'm sure. So thank you, Mr. CEO. Dr. Rose, anything in closing?
Yes, first of all, I want to thank you for coming on the program at such a short notice, and you're always welcome here at any time, because I think our listeners love you, and the passion you exerted tonight will go a far way in everyone coming to support you. But I have a question. You said you welcome suggestions, but when I send you them, you don't take them.
Doc, I do forward your suggestion to I work with a team, and the team look at these things. But not everything you say makes...
Or maybe, right, maybe they're not good suggestions, so...
That's true. But finally, I want to say, we need better internet services in this country. We need government offices to be open during lunch hours. We need newly appointed public servants to be paid within 1 month of their job and not 3 months. And we need public servants to answer their landline telephones. And last but not least, we need the government to address mental health issues and societal deaths. These are key issues or problems in this society, and they are solvable. So those who have ears to hear, let them hear.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Rose. Thank you, Mr. CEO, for being with us. And to our audience out there, we want to thank you so much to Noir Singh, to Devin Bissu. Thank you so much to our people of Guyana. God bless our great country. Take care until next week. Bye now.
Thank you.
They don't go.